Welcome to Show-Off Showdown! In this series, the fighters are called Show-Offs, and this is the series for the Show-Off Showdown! Now let's meet the Show-Offs for tonight's Showdown, shall we? Tonight is the legendary console versus indie game battle between the mutated marsupial and the half-genie hero. That's right, Shantae versus Crash Bandicoot! Who knows what to expect from this fight? All we know is that it's going to be one of the most epic dance fights in gaming history! Oh, and before we begin, this battle will feature a full-on pre-analysis for both characters. So let's not waste any more time and get straight into it, shall we? Now without further ado, it's time for the Show-Off Showdown pre-analysis!
Remember the good old days back in the 90s, when the Sony PlayStation hit the scene? Well, while there were many iconic beloved characters that defined the PlayStation, there was one mascot who really stood out above all the rest, and his name is Crash Bandicoot. Now, this isn't the first time Crash has appeared in a versus matchup, so I'm sure most of you already know a lot about Crash and what he's capable of. But for those of you who don't, let's go over some of the most important things we need to know about Crash. For those of you who don't know Crash, he was once an ordinary Bandicoot who was experimented on by an evil scientist named Dr. Neo Cortex. While Dr. Cortex's plan to turn Crash into a mutant freak of nature was a success, sadly, he utterly failed to brainwash Crash, essentially making him a failed experiment. Ironically, Cortex still had Crash's mutant Bandicoot girlfriend Tana and held her hostage. And from that moment on, Crash became Dr. Cortex's worst enemy, which formed into a continuous hardcore rivalry between the two, one that may never end. Okay, now that we've gone over Crash's backstory, let's discuss what this mutant marsupial is capable of, shall we? For starters, Crash has very impressive superhuman physicality. He's strong enough to throw an 8-ton boulder, as well as casually lift a 6-ton woolly mammoth and slam it on the ground repeatedly. He's also faster than Dr. Neo Cortex, who is already fast enough to dodge lightning. And his greatest feat of durability is when Crash survived being inside a spaceship that fell from the Earth's atmosphere and Crash landed with a massive explosion upon impact. In fact, it has been estimated by Leopold the Brave that the impact of this explosive crash landing is the equivalent of enough firepower to destroy an entire full urban-sized city. So clearly, this Bandicoot is a lot tougher than he looks. Now in terms of Crash's powers and abilities, Crash's signature move is the Cyclone Spin attack, which I'm sure most of you are already familiar with. In fact, Crash can also upgrade his spin attack with a Death Tornado, which not only allows him to spin and glide in midair, but according to Leopold the Brave, this also gives Crash the ability to literally spin forever. Not only that, but Crash has a few other moves, such as his Body Slam, Slide Kick, Rocket Jump, which allows him to jump a lot higher, Crash Dash, which boosts his speed even further, and not to mention Crash also appears to be immune to brainwashing and mind control. Not only that, but in the game Skylanders Imaginators, Crash gained an all-new special ability, which every sensei in the game possesses, also known as Sky Chi. Sky Chi is a powerful destructive attack that basically annihilates all enemies in a short area. Now, every sensei Sky Chi attack comes in a different form depending on the element, battle class, and character. Because Crash is a life element brawler in the game, his Sky Chi attack comes in the form of a yo-yo. Wow, who knew a yo-yo could be so powerful? Okay, now that we've gotten that covered, Crash has many useful tools and weapons in his arsenal, which include a bazooka that shoots Wumpa fruit, a cliche-looking mech that also shoots fruit as well as water, a helicopter pack and a jetpack, an airplane with a machine gun attached to it, a space motorcycle, the tornado top which Crash can throw and catch enemies inside a small tornado, a variety of explosives such as bombs, missiles, and TNT crates, and not to mention the invisibility crate, which makes Crash invisible for a few seconds. So let's just say, Crash has got a lot of stuff packed up his arsenal. Now while Crash is perfectly capable of fighting on his own, he is often accompanied by a mask with the reincarnated spirit of a witch doctor named Aku Aku, who protects and watches over Crash and cares for him like his own son. Now if Crash finds and breaks all 3 of Aku Aku's crates, Aku Aku will make Crash nearly invincible for up to 20 seconds. Not only that, but Aku Aku can also shield Crash from attacks that normally be fatal to him, but unfortunately he would have to sacrifice himself to do so, which would destroy his physical body. Now this wouldn't actually kill Aku Aku as he can magically regenerate, but should this happen, Aku Aku would pretty much be out of the game during a battle, unless Crash managed to find yet another Aku Aku crate, somehow. Not only that, but Aku 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 also has a special technique known as Titan jacking, where Crash places Aku on a large mutant or Titan's face and controls them like a puppet. In fact, because of this, thanks to Aku, Crash can pocket a large arsenal of Titans and mutants with many different abilities, such as making spikes come out of the ground, shooting projectiles, manipulating ice, telepathy, and more. Now, as awesomely unstoppable as Crash may seem, he does have a few exposable weaknesses. For instance, while Crash is an excellent athletic fighter and a fairly good puzzle solver, ironically, he's not the sharpest rat in the lab, if you know what I mean. In fact, Crash has gotten easily distracted, fooled, and manipulated multiple times in the past. Not to mention, Crash's body may be incredibly tough, but there is a possibility that Crash's body might be vulnerable to razor-sharp blades and objects, as seen when Crash's body got sliced clean in half by this blade-wielding foe. Although rather if this feat is considered an outlier or gag or not is debatable, but you know what, I'll talk more about this later in the video. However, despite all this insane wild party animal of a Bandicoot has saved the world multiple times, and he always leaves his opponent's head spinning. Part human, part genie, part hero, 100% pure awesomeness. Ladies and gents, meet Shantae, the hair-whipping, belly-dancing, half-genie hero. Let's start off with a little brief history. The character Shantae was originally created in 1994, but her first video game wasn't released until 2002. Her original game on the Game Boy Color eventually led to the sequel, Risky's Revenge, in 2010, followed by The Pirate's Curse in 2014, and finally her latest title in 2016, Half Genie Hero. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go over a little backstory, shall we? Keep in mind, I'm probably going to be talking fast because there's a lot to cover, and I don't want this video to go on forever. A long time ago, the world of Sequin Land was protected by genies. Now, these genies are not exactly like the ones from Aladdin. These genies were most likely seen as godlike guardians of mankind. Their heroism won long years of peace, and some genies have even fell in love with mortal men, which led to them giving birth to half-human genie hybrids, such as Shantae. However, once the genies felt like their duties have been fulfilled, they ascended to a higher plane of existence known as the Genie Realm. With all the genies gone, Shantae was the only one left who could protect her home Scuttletown from all evil that threatens it. Over the years, Shantae has made some new friends, new enemies, and basically became the town's guardian half-genie. While Shantae has never met her parents, and the origin and identity of her parents currently remains a mystery, she still has high hopes that she will one day meet them. Now, in terms of personality and character traits, Shantae is known for having a very strong sense of justice that drives her to help people in need. And because of that, she takes her title as Guardian Genie very seriously. Shantae is also known for being very passionate, playful, fun-loving, caring, somewhat shy and naive, yet also clever, occasionally sassy and stubborn, tomboyish, and has quite a complex self-esteem. For example, despite being the guardian hero of Scuttletown, she ironically considers herself to be a bad role model due to her bad temper and fashion sense. But if you ask me, I beg to differ. Okay, now that we gotten that out of the way, let's take a look at some of the feats she has achieved, shall we? Shantae has foiled the plans of the Pirate Queen and her arch-nemesis Risky Boots at least 3 times, defeated her evil clone Nega Shantae after her powers were taken from her, defeated a military general/dictator named the Ammo Baron and stopped his invasion of Scuttletown, returned Scuttletown to its previous peaceful state via her power of wish granting, thwarted the Techno Baron's scheme to make counterfeit mermaids and sell them as canned monster chow,
So in Calpita,
helped the citizens of Scuttletown regain their lost memories after they got amnesia from the memories being stolen and fed to a giant worm. Yes, this is a thing. Stopped the Ammo Baron from sabotaging an air race, defeated the Hypno Baron and the creature of unspeakable horror, who turned out to be the Squid Baron, saved both the human and genie realm from being corrupted by Risky Boots, and not to mention, she did those last 5 feats I mentioned all in just one day. If that's not impressive enough, one of Shantae's greatest feats is when she teamed up with her nemesis Risky Boots to save Sequin Land, and Shantae has defeated the Pirate Master. The Pirate Master is a pure evil entity who is said to be so powerful, it took the power of all the genies combined to seal him in his grave before they all ascended to the Genie Realm. No doubt that's one heck of a feat. Not only that, but Shantae has even saved all the genies and the entire Genie Realm. In fact, Shantae was given the chance to join the genies and spend eternal peace inside the Genie Realm, but she declined the offer because not only is it a one-way trip, but it would mean forever abandoning all of her friends and loved ones in the mortal world. However, Shantae did get a chance to briefly visit the Genie Realm in Half Genie Hero, but only to find out that it was being corrupted by Risky Boots' Tinkerbrain, before she destroyed it, that is. Okay, now that we gone through some of Shantae's feats, heights. Let's discuss what this half-genie hero is capable of. Not only does being a half-genie grant Shantae some of her own magical powers, but it also grants her very impressive superhuman physicality. For example, Shantae has massively hypersonic reaction speed as she is fast enough to casually dodge multiple lightning strikes repeatedly. Now as for strength, Shantae is strong enough to push around large stone desert blocks larger than herself. If I were to give a random but comparable example, this is very similar to when Lara Croft from Tomb Raider was pushing around large desert blocks that were estimated to weigh about 27 tons. Now these blocks that Shantae and Lara Croft were both pushing are most likely made of limestone, since it's a very common rock material. Now in order to find out how much Shantae's block weighs compared to Lara Croft's, I've estimated the size of these blocks by comparing them to the characters' heights. Shantae stands about 5'8" and Lara Croft is 5'6", so surprisingly Shantae is actually slightly taller than Lara Croft. So after estimating the block sizes, and then doing some limestone weight calculations with my friend the MLG Avocado, the blocks that Shantae was pushing have been estimated to weigh roughly about 16.6 tons. Although another important fact to take note of is that when Lara Croft was pushing that block, she was clearly putting in quite a bit of effort, while on the other hand, Shantae was pushing her block rather casually. Now not only can Shantae push a lot of weight, but she can also pack quite a punch. In fact, Shantae's main method of attack is whipping her hair back and forth like Willow Smith. In fact, not only is her hair strong enough to break through solid stone, concrete, and metal, but she can even use it to pummel and defeat gigantic monsters much larger and more physically imposing than herself, such as a dragon, a giant worm that eats memories, and even a colossal queen mermaid with tatas bigger than Shantae herself. In fact, I've estimated the upper half of the Giga Mermaid's body to be over 42 feet tall, and that's not even counting her tail end, so it's likely she's even larger than that. In fact, not only can Shantae use her hair to pummel these massive monsters to death, but she can even hit them hard enough to eventually make them explode. Now keep in mind, once again, Shantae does this with just her hair, so it's likely her body is even stronger than that. In fact, Shantae actually has a power kick attack that's even stronger than her basic hair whip, although it's also a tad slower than her hair, which is why she doesn't use it as often. Now while Shantae is very impressively strong and fast, her durability is where she really shines. Not only is Shantae capable of tanking and shrugging off explosions on a regular basis, but she can tank an incredible amount of abuse, even from foes like the Pirate Master, which should be at least building level to city block level via size alone. Sometimes large falling objects don't even faze her. Not only that, but Shantae can tank a massive explosion that completely destroyed an entire large airship, as well as the resulting fall, and come out completely unharmed without a scratch. Now if that's not impressive enough, Shantae has been shown multiple times to be physically on par with Risky Boots, and therefore can scale to her. In fact, Risky Boots is durable enough to survive a massive explosion that blew up an entire volcano as well as destroyed the entire island it was on. So let's just say it's gonna take quite a lot to take down a half-genie as tough as Shantae. Okay, now that we discussed Shantae's physicality, let's discuss her weapons, powers, and abilities. Now, being a half-genie, Shantae has many different ways of using her genie magic. Her powers are comprised of light magic, which is very effective against dark magic, dark elemental beings, and pure evil entities. As you would have guessed, Shantae is capable of granting wishes, but she has only done so once when she returned Scuttletown to its previous peaceful state. Now, the extent of Shantae's wish granting is unknown and remains unknown to this day. Now, one of Shantae's most iconic ways of channeling her magic is her signature belly dance. Now, interesting and fun fact, according to Gajanguba, Shantae's style of belly dancing is actually inspired by the Oriental Turkish style of belly dancing, which is very traditional in Turkish culture. In fact, Gajanguba has even made an entire video about it, and I'll give you a link to it in the description below. Anyway, Shantae has many different belly dancing techniques, each used for a different magical effect. For example, the warp dance allows Shantae to warp to certain locations or areas she's previously been to. The healing dance is pretty self-explanatory, it heals Shantae at the cost of a few gems. The revival dance allows her to revive more of her health at the cost of some magic, which I'll discuss later. However, Shantae's most useful and iconic dances are her transformation dances, which allow her to transform into different animals or creatures for different purposes. Her monkey form is used to climb walls, her elephant form is used to gain more strength and overpower foes, and can also teleport above an enemy's head and crush them from above, and even triple in size while doing so. Her harpy form allows for flight and swooping down onto enemies with sharp talons. Her spider form also allows to climb on walls as well as ceilings, and can use her web to lower herself down and even spray a corrosive acid like venom onto enemies. Her mermaid form allows her to breathe and swim underwater, shoot explosive bubbles, can swim up waterfalls somehow, and sometimes charm sea creatures into helping her. Her crab form allows her to scuttle underwater and hide inside her shell, which makes her invulnerable to almost any attack. Her bat form grants her flight, night vision, and sonar. Her mouse form allows her to squeeze through small tight spaces. Her dryad tree form allows her to blend in with the surrounding environment and sometimes drop delicious oranges. Her gem dog form is used to make a little extra money. Her blobfish form is ugly as heck and about as useless as Magikarp. And finally, her Tinkerbat form disguises her as a Tinkerbat, one of the most common enemies in the Shantae series, and it basically has all the functions of the elephant, harpy, and spider forms all in one, and not to mention it wields a cutlass sword. Now, aside from her belly dances and transformations, Shantae has something called a magic meter, which is what fuels some of her other magical powers and abilities at the cost of some magic. While the magic meter contains a limited supply of magic, it doesn't run out that easily, and even if it does run out, it gradually but slowly refills itself automatically. Some of Shantae's magical powers and abilities that require using some of the magic meter include her deadly fireballs and flamethrower attacks, the puff clouds which shoot lightning, home in on enemies, and explode, the pike balls which are spiky metal balls that orbit around Shantae like a solar system, and can even surround herself with scimitar swords as well. She also has 3 different types of bubble shields. The regular bubble shield protects Shantae from projectile attacks, the mirror bubble shield rebounds or deflects projectiles back at enemies, and the invincibility bubble shield is exactly what it sounds like. It makes Shantae completely invulnerable to all attacks, except for stage hazards. However, the longer she uses these bubbles, the more magic she drains. And finally, one of Shantae's strongest magical attacks is called Obliterate, a dance that creates a powerful blast of invisible magic that does massive damage to all enemies on screen, but at the cost of a large chunk of magic from the meter. However, Shantae also has a few other weapons and power-ups which don't require using the magic meter. For example, Shantae has a few personal fighting moves such as the power kick I mentioned earlier, along with the upward somersault kick, elbow dash, and backdash to propel herself backwards to avoid close-up attacks. Now in terms of weapons, Shantae has a scimitar sword which she can use to sword fight, throw like a boomerang, and even use as a pogo stick. She also has a pirate pistol with unlimited ammunition, a pirate hat to glide, a cannon that she pulls out of nowhere and fires cannonballs downward to propel herself off the ground, a magic lamp that Risky Boots once used to enslave genies and take away Shantae's powers, but is now used by Shantae to suck up magical energy as well as money and gas-like substances, and can even turn dark magic into light magic. And finally, Risky's Boots, which allows Shantae to run on lava and perform the sword dash, which allows Shantae to run way faster than she usually does, and she can strike with a lot more force as well. In fact, during a sword dash, she can rip through tons of stone walls like paper, and she basically plows right through everything in her path. Now as for Shantae's power-ups, Shantae has Monster Milk, which temporarily increases her strength and striking power, and Super Monster Milk can boost that even further. The Magic Vial, which refills Shantae's magic meter, the Float Muffin, which essentially makes Shantae's body act like a bouncy rubber ball, which is very useful when falling into pits or off cliffs, the Vanish Cream, which allows Shantae to walk through walls and pass through enemies, essentially making her completely intangible for up to 16 seconds. However, she can't attack while she's intangible. The Twin Mints, which doubles Shantae's attack power and also creates an illusional clone of herself, which moves and attacks in unison with Shantae. She also has a healing potion, which is exactly what it sounds like. And last but not least is the Auto Potion. If Shantae's health is completely drained, the Auto Potion will regenerate all of her health instantly, and it essentially brings Shantae back to life just at the point of death. And the best part, she doesn't even have to drink it. It just does it on its own. But that's not all Shantae has in her arsenal. She also has a variety of alternate costumes, which all grant her new powers and abilities. Her dancer outfit increases her power and allows her to only consume half the magic she usually does from her magic meter. However, it also weakens her armor and defense, probably due to how much of her body is exposed. Shantae also has a princess outfit, which she got after some Egyptian idiots thought she was the princess back from the dead, and I assume it carries some of the same properties as her dancer outfit. But that's not all. In Half Genie Hero, Shantae has 3 alternate special costumes, most of which change her style of combat and gameplay. For starters, Shantae's Beach Day costume allows her to summon a bunch of beach balls that bounce around and damage enemies, as well as form a floating bubble around herself. However, she's also vulnerable to getting sunburned while wearing it, which is apparently a problem in video games now. Anyway, Shantae also has a ninja costume, which really reminds me of Stealtha from Skylanders, Jade from Mortal Kombat, and Akali from League of Legends. Anyway, Shantae's ninja costume increases her already insane speed and agility even further, and does a stereotypical ninja run. Her ninja mask can block foul odors, she can jump on and stick to walls, she can use ninja vanish to disappear in a puff of smoke and teleport short distances, and she can throw shurikens and use her ninjato sword for swift, quick strikes. And last but certainly not least is her Officer Wagon costume. This costume was inspired by another game made by Way Forward, the same company that makes Shantae, aka Mighty Switch Force. With this costume, Shantae becomes an officer of the Galactic Penal Squad and basically gains all the powers of Patricia Wagon from Mighty Switch Force. This gives her a battle frame, which is a cybernetic body that's even more powerful than a regular body, granting her enhanced strength and durability. However, she cannot duck, crawl, swim, or dance while wearing it. But she does have a pellet gun, which has unlimited ammunition and shoots rapid-fire pellets in multiple directions. She also has a siren helmet, which allows her to control switch blocks, which are large colorful blocks that disappear and reappear at Shantae's will. While they're commonly used as barriers and platforms, Shantae can also use them to do this.
Dang, talk about a fourth wall break.
Although Shantae might want to be careful not to accidentally do it to herself. Not to mention, Shantae also has a scanner to track down space hooligans, and a device that communicates with headquarters and even accesses criminal records.
Let's just say she's got a lot packing underneath that suit.
Now, the last form of Shantae I'd like to discuss is Nega Shantae. If Shantae becomes corrupted by evil or dark magic, she'll enter a pure evil dark form that's essentially the exact opposite of her normal self. In this form, the once caring and fun-loving Shantae now becomes extremely cruel, sadistic, violent, and bloodthirsty, and is even willing to kill her closest friends. And she will also do all she can to destroy hope and lie in an attempt to make people surrender to darkness. While this form may make her stronger, she loses all self-control and she can't snap out of it unless her friends get through to her and remind her of who she really is.
Sounds familiar, right?
But even then, she can stay in this form for hours, especially if left unchecked. However, if Shantae absorbs too much dark magic, it can overload her body and make her pass out. Now, as tough and hardcore as Shantae is, she does have quite a few notable weaknesses. While Shantae is not stupid, she is young and considerably naive. Not only that, but some of her magic abilities rely on a limited magic meter, like I mentioned earlier. Some of her transformations aren't really suited for combat and could actually leave her more vulnerable. While Shantae's belly dancing, she is left wide open and vulnerable to attacks, especially if she doesn't dance fast enough. Her genie powers can be taken away from her, such as when Risky Boots use a magic lamp to strip Shantae of her magic. And finally, if her ponytail gets cut off, she'll no longer be able to use it, unless it grows back, but who knows. But despite all this half-genie hero will never be afraid or hesitate to put up a fight, and she will always be, quote-unquote, ready to go. I can't believe I just said that.
This is it, folks. Who will be the winner of this ultimate, insanely crazy epic showdown? It's time to find out. Now, without further ado, it's time for the Show-Offs to Showdown!
Get ready for the next battle.
If Crash's wish was to get dominated by a half genie, then it looks like that wish has been granted.
Okay, now after seeing such a long, hard-fought epic battle, let's discuss how and why Shantae wins this crazy, epic, insane showdown. Now, because I've already done a full-on pre-analysis, let's keep things short and simple by briefly going over the obvious facts, and then going in-depth into the more important or complicated parts afterwards. Now, in terms of experience, Shantae and Crash should both be roughly in their teen years, as far as I'm aware, so the experience gap shouldn't be too wide. While strategy and battle tactics is somewhat debatable, Shantae and Crash are both excellent puzzle solvers, and can both fight very well in multiple styles of combat. Okay, now here's where we get to the more important stuff. In terms of physicality, this should be pretty self-explanatory. Crash and Shantae are evenly matched in speed, as they are both fast enough to casually dodge lightning with little effort. Now, while Crash is strong enough to throw an 8-ton boulder and casually lift a 6-ton woolly mammoth and slam it on the ground repeatedly, Shantae has shown to be at least twice as strong as Crash Bandicoot. And this isn't even counting her power kick, sword dash, monster milk, or any other strength-related abilities or enhancements she has. Now, in terms of durability, Crash's greatest feat was surviving a spaceship falling from the atmosphere and crash landing onto Earth, and the impact has been estimated to be powerful enough to destroy an entire city. While this is very impressive, no doubt, Shantae's durability being equal to Risky Boots, who survived an exploding volcano that destroyed an entire island, is clearly more impressive. However, because both Crash and Shantae's levels of durability are way higher than their strength, Crash and Shantae have literally no way to physically kill each other with raw strength alone, and because of this battle is so close that it could almost be considered a stalemate. However, while their strength alone isn't enough to get the job done, let's see if either of them have any weapons, powers, or abilities that could possibly make a difference in this battle. For starters, believe it or not, most of Shantae's abilities, weapons, and power-ups could actually counter most of Crash's. For instance, Shantae could counter Crash's body slam with her upward somersault kick, basically kicking him out of midair before he lands. She could also counter Crash's slide attack by crouching and whipping, which is more effective than it sounds. She could counter Crash's explosives with some of her own weapons, or just by using her bubble shield. While Crash Dash can boost Crash's speed, Shantae can match that with either her sword dash or ninja costume. Also, Crash has something called the invisibility crate, which turns him invisible for a few seconds, but Shantae can counter that with her vanish cream, which makes her intangible. Anyway, while Crash has tools boo for flying, such as a helicopter pack, jetpack, and airplane, not only does Shantae's harpy form allow her to fly as well, but these sorts of things aren't really anything that Shantae hasn't faced before. Anyway, Crash has a bazooka and a cliche mech that both shoot Wumpa Fruit. Although, considering that Shantae can use her hair whip to deflect cannonballs from a large military-grade tank, who's to say she can't deflect a few fruits as well? Although Crash can fire Wumpa Fruits hard enough to destroy robots, so I could be wrong, but Shantae has been seen smashing apart large machines even bigger than this tank I mentioned, so Crash's mech won't really help him too much in the long run. Also, while Crash can summon a variety of titans at his disposal via titan jacking, because Shantae has pummeled and defeated much larger and likely stronger monsters, the titans shouldn't be too much of a struggle for her. Plus, with all of Shantae's other power-ups and abilities in her arsenal I mentioned earlier, she can most likely get past just about everything Crash has to throw at her. Not to mention, I don't think Shantae really has to worry about using too much of her magic meter while doing so. Now, if anything, the only obstacle that Shantae would probably have to dodge would be Aku Aku. Now, a good question for this debate would be, would Aku Aku only show up to protect Crash temporarily, or would he try to block Shantae from hurting Crash at every turn? We do know that if Crash finds and breaks open all three of Aku Aku's crates, Aku Aku will make Crash practically invulnerable for up to 20 seconds. Now, even without this temporary 9 invincibility, Aku Aku can also shield himself from attacks that would normally be fatal to Crash, but unfortunately, he would have to sacrifice himself to do so, which would destroy his physical body. Now, this wouldn't actually kill Aku Aku, as he can magically regenerate, but should this happen, Aku Aku would pretty much be out of the game for this battle, unless Crash manages to find yet another Aku Aku crate, which is highly unlikely to happen, unless Crash has the home court advantage. Now, not only can Shantae's invincibility bubble shield match that kind of invulnerability, but Shantae also has something else in her arsenal that may or may not be able to affect Aku Aku, which would be her magic lamp. So therefore, the question is, could Shantae's magic lamp affect Aku Aku? Well, that's a really good question, and let's find out. Now, like I said during the pre-analysis, Risky Boots used this lamp to take away Shantae's magical genie powers. Now, exactly how powerful is Aku Aku compared to Shantae? Well, according to Leopold the Brave, Aku Aku is superior to other masks who can destroy entire towns with natural disasters. Now, like I also said during the pre-analysis, Shantae's wish-granting capability has been shown only once when she used her genie powers to restore all of Scuttletown back to its previous peaceful state. While once again, the full extent of her wish-granting capability is unknown, but from what Shantae has shown and proven to do, her wish-granting capability should be at least town level. So therefore, Shantae's level of magical power should be relatively close to Aku Aku's, more or less. Now, not only can the lamp take away Shantae's powers, but it can also imprison entire genies and harvest their magic as well. And full-fledged genies are obviously much more powerful than half genies like Shantae, and that has been made pretty clear multiple times in the Shantae series. Not to mention that genies live within an entirely different or separate plane of existence, so there's that too. Okay, now before anyone says that the magic lamp only works on genies and nothing else, it has been shown in the Pirate's Curse game that the magic lamp can absorb other different types of magic, as well as different types of energy sources, such as manifested energy from a warrior spirit, for example. So, with all this in mind, I think there's a good chance that the magic lamp could possibly affect Aku Aku and take away his magical powers. Although I could be wrong, and there's a good chance that there are some things I might have missed, so if there are, then please let me know in the comments below. Now, the last good question for this debate would be, do Shantae or Crash have any weapons that could affect each other's physical weaknesses? Well, like I said earlier, one of Shantae's most exposable physical weaknesses is that if her ponytail gets cut off, she'll no longer be able to use it. However, after looking into Crash's arsenal, it appears that Crash doesn't seem to have any sharp weapons capable of cutting off Shantae's hair. But even if he did, Crash wouldn't know that he need to cut off Shantae's hair, especially not without prep time. Not only that, but that probably wouldn't be Crash's first tactical decision or method of attack anyway, especially against someone he's never met before. Now as for Crash, while his body is incredibly tough, no doubt, there is a possibility that his body could be vulnerable to razor-sharp blades and objects, because in one instance, Crash's body has gotten sliced clean in half by this blade-wielding foe. In fact, both halves of Crash's body were still able to move, somehow, for about a few seconds before he died. Kinda like a chicken with its head cut off. Although, it is possible that this could probably be considered an outlier or just a gag or something. However, if this feat is legit, and Crash's body is vulnerable to razor-sharp blades, then Shantae definitely has the right tools to get the job done. Now, even if this feat isn't legit, Shantae would still be able to beat Crash by knockout, which should still count as a tactical win regardless. So overall, while this battle was definitely not easy to break down, and while Shantae and Crash were a lot more closely matched than they seemed at first glance, but with Shantae being physically stronger and more durable, most of her arsenal countering most of Crash's, and being able to tank and get past pretty much everything Crash has to throw at her, I think it's safe to say that Shantae's got this battle in the bag. I think I've said enough.
So, in the end, Crash Bandicoot is now Umagon!
The winner of this battle is Shantae. Now, if you thought this battle wasn't epic enough, well, you know the old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer? Well, let me put it to you this way. I'm thinking of a 2-on-2 battle between Shantae and Risky Boots versus Crash Bandicoot and Dr. Neocortex. These two are prime examples of how your worst enemy could also become your greatest ally, if you try hard enough, that is. So, if you want to see this rematch between friends and foes, then let me know in the comments below and we'll see what happens in the future. Now, before we wrap this up, I want to give a huge special thanks and shout out to everyone who has helped make this battle possible. For starters, I'd like to thank Leopold the Brave for helping me with the research on Crash Bandicoot. I'd also like to thank Bob the Jiggle Maestro for the incredible 3D animated opening scene of this battle. And finally, I'd like to thank the other two amazing animators for this battle, Ruby Rogers and Huntsman Draconia. All of these guys played a huge important role in making this battle a reality, and I couldn't have done it without them. They have plenty of amazing content on their channels as well, so do yourself a favor and go check out their channels and subscribe.
Hashtag vote Crash and Shantae for Smash. Next time on Show-Off Showdown! Got any ideas for Show-Off Showdown? Then let me know in the comments below. And hopefully, I just might do them. Now stay tuned for the next episode of Show-Off Showdown!